Welcome to tonight's special meeting of Port Phillip City Council, where we will hear feedback from the community on the draft council plan and budget year 4. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nations. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continued relationship to this land. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recordings of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to Council and the processes under which it operates, and must take directions from the Chair whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of Council. This special meeting of Council is to hear community feedback from the community on the draft council plan and budget for year 4. There is no provision on tonight's agenda to deal with any other matters. Council will consider all the feedback provided tonight, together with the extensive community consultation process that closed yesterday, and will come back to adopt the budget at the special council meeting to be held on the 26th of June 2024. So we'll start with apologies. Councillors, do we have any apologies? I know we have 7 in the room and 2 online, so everybody is present. Therefore, no apologies. Declarations of conflicts of interest. I remind councillors that tonight's meeting is strictly for the purpose of hearing feedback from members of the public. It's not for discussion, debate, or deciding the budget. And we do not wish to prejudice any council decision on the council plan and budget. Whilst councillors may ask clarifying questions of the public or of officers, if councillors enter into debate or comment on the budget, conflict of interest provisions will apply, and councillors will need to consider their potential for conflicts or any other things that arise, whether they need to remove themselves from the meeting. So let's keep it listening to the public, clarifying questions only, please. All right, we'll go on to the one report for consideration tonight, being the council plan and budget year 4, the interim engagement report, hearing of community feedback. We will now open the floor to the public to provide the feedback on this item. I believe we have about 21 speakers. Is that an updated number? Okay, 21. Given it's a night to hear from the community, we're going to keep it at 3 minutes, so not reducing at all. But I'll call your name. If you can come down. We have a few on virtual, online. Whose phone keeps buzzing? Okay, thank you. The red light is already on. You do not need to turn it on or off. Please have a seat, name, suburb, and you'll have your 3 minutes. I call upon the first person, Sandra Blackburn, speaking to item 3.1. Everyone's speaking the same thing. I'm not going to say that, right? Okay. Hi, Sandra. Come on down.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Sanya from Elwood, and I'm the president of the Elwood Toy Library, speaking on behalf of a bid for some more funding going forward. The Elwood Toy Library is a not-for-profit that supports City of Port Phillip's Children's Services policy, Every Child, Our Future, to help achieve 3 important outcomes. The first, children are supported to develop their full potential. The second, parents, carers and families are supported to increase their capacity and capability. And third, that the effects of disadvantage on children's development are minimised. The Toy Library helps support these outcomes by loaning over 9,000 toys, puzzles, games and party packs to local families that support children's social, emotional, physical and cognitive development. Research shows that a child's first 3 to 5 years are crucial for their development, and that investing in positive experiences, play and nurturing relationships sets the foundation for lifelong learning, health and behaviour. Yet the service of Elwood Toy Library is under threat due to a 44% increase in the annual award, leave and super entitlements that we must pay our coordinator. As such, we need a small increase in our funding from Council of only $5,000 per annum to secure the financial sustainability of the Toy Library. This is a great investment for Council for a few reasons. First, it will facilitate over 14,000 hours of play every year. It will save over 9,000 kilograms of plastic from landfill each year and be matched by a community contribution of 800 volunteer hours every year, valued at $32,000. I'll end with a quote from a report commissioned by City of Port Phillip from the Centre for Excellence in Child and Family Welfare. A child's right to play has been long recognised by the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights and is enshrined in Article 31 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Play increases brain development and growth, establishes neural connections and makes us more intelligent. Children today have less time for play of all kinds than previous generations and are missing out on vital development opportunities as a result. Services like toy libraries and playgroups are particularly important to low-income families or families experiencing other forms of disadvantage. Given the importance of play to early childhood development, there is a strong case for why the Council should continue to invest in these services.
Thank you, Senya.
Okay, thanks.
I call upon Dale O'Neill joining us online. Do we have Dale? Hi, Dale. Can you hear us?
Hi. Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Name, suburb, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to address Council. My name is Dale O'Neill, and I'm representing the Elwood Park Tennis Club. Elwood Park Tennis Club is seeking financial support from Council towards the resurfacing of 4 existing tennis courts located on Ormond Esplanade, Elwood. With limited options within the City of Port Phillip for local residents to play tennis, Elwood Park Tennis Club is an important community facility that is made available to both members and the wider community alike. Following a recent change to access, the entire local community can now use the tennis courts at any time via an online book a court system. This has proved to be highly successful, particularly over the recent summer months. This change means Elwood Park Tennis Club is now the only tennis club within Port Phillip that provides full access for the entire community to play tennis. While this has provided much needed access to tennis courts in the local area, it does put pressure on the club to be able to maintain the courts in a suitable playing condition. The current surface was laid more than 14 years ago, but through careful management and ongoing maintenance, they have lasted well past their typical lifespan of around 8 years. The resurfacing of the courts is an urgent project as the current surface is considered to be unsafe and unplayable after rain events. There have been serious injuries that have occurred due to the current unsafe playing surface, along with a number of near-miss incidents. Council recently provided approval for the resurfacing of the courts to proceed, subject to additional works being carried out, specifically the installation of root barriers and the additional drainage works, which has added more than 30% to the cost of the project. As a small community club, the members have limited funds available to replace the existing surface on all 4 courts and complete the additional works. Elwood Park Tennis Club is supportive of the additional works as stipulated by Council in order to protect and maintain trees around the perimeter and prevent any further damage to the playing surface. Elwood Park Tennis Club is seeking support from Council to contribute at least 25% towards the total cost of the resurfacing project and make it available in July 2024 and in order for the project to go ahead as scheduled in August. Elwood Park Tennis Club has continued to engage with Council on the project, including the specific requirements, proposed design, tender process, request for funding and project status. The full details on the surfacing re-project are available, and the Elwood Park Tennis Club Committee are available at any time to discuss any aspect of this request or project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dale. I call upon Carol Ann Allen, speaking to item 3.1. Hello, Carol Ann.
Hello and good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carol Ann Allen, and I'm a resident in St Kilda West, and I also work there. I'm here this evening to express my gratitude for your continued funding support for the Port Phillip Eco Centre. I was recently granted Australian citizenship right here on Australia Day, and Councillor Surikoff, I believe you presented me with this wonderful native time. I take both the symbolism of this little plant and the larger reality that it represents quite to heart. I am planting my roots here, and I want to make a real contribution. So I've partnered with the Eco Center in a voluntary capacity to create climate cafes. And what's a climate cafe? It's a safe space where folks can share their feelings about climate change. Research confirms significant levels of distress about the climate crisis. Too often these feelings go unspoken and unshared, and this is known to magnify emotional and psychological harms that distress can cause. This can lead to further harms of disconnection, isolation, despair, and worse. The Council's own climate-related policy goals wisely seek to, quote, provide opportunities to build emotional and psychological well-being and resilience, including community connectedness, support, positive action plans and programs. This is just what we're doing with our climate cafes. And there's a growing evidence base within psychology research validating the efficacy of the Climate Cafe community connection model. I have marveled at the Eco Center's culture of, yes, let's get it done. It took only 4 weeks from sharing the idea to opening our first cafe. Like their no-waste policies promoting sustainability, they wasted no time. I won't waste this time either. I will plant it symbolically and for real in the garden at the Eco Center's wonderful new home. And I thank you again for your continued support.
Thank you very much. I call upon April Seymour.
Do I get the applause special effect as well?
Yes. Well timed there.
Thank you. April Seymour, St Kilda East, speaking tonight as EO of the Eco Center. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for this opportunity. First, a bit of context. Eco Center's core funding agreement has Port Phillip at its heart. While 70% of our funding comes from sources outside of Port Phillip, nearly 2/3 of our programs are held in the municipality. Council's funding is critical. It ensures foundational systems, OHS, child safety standards, inclusive volunteer coordination, venue management, logistics, and a prorated portion of events. That is, Council pays only for council-aligned and local services, and generally as seed funding, which we then leverage and top up through fundraising and volunteer power, and are together able to run over 800 events and activities per year. The Eco Center's signature approach, inclusive, community-centered, innovative, evidence-based, and collaborative, has demonstrated great environmental outcomes and also community building, economic, and well-being returns on this investment for the individuals and groups involved and for council objectives in open spaces. This is to the scale of 15.9 times return on investment. We have asked for funding increase only twice in 20 years, in each instance with a business case fairly reflecting increased costs to meet current needs. In 2024, we celebrate the opening of Port Phillip's world leadership level sustainable Eco Center. And so we are delighted with the budgeted 18-month pilot of weekend openings, enabling us to maximize and collect evidence on the facility's benefits through doubling community inquiries that we can support and empowering more community-run events like the Amazing Repair Cafe or the Climate Cafes. The benefits ripple outwards from the Eco Center to homes and businesses and schools across Port Phillip because 90% of Eco Center participants report as they leave Eco Center events or afterwards new actions that they're undertaking to reduce emissions and waste, travel sustainably, save water, protect biodiversity, or simply volunteer more with local community groups that they've heard about through the Eco Center. Secondly, I want to highlight that the Eco Center is the community. When we ask, we are families and students and pensioners, renters and homeowners, lifelong residents, but also newly arrived. Our members are scientists and artists, baristas, bankers, parents, and teachers. Visiting the Eco Center across an average week, you can hear at least 10 languages being spoken. You could meet 2-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 82-year-olds. Tonight, the Eco Center, the community, thanks you, Council, for your continued support in the draft budget. Thank you.
Thank you, April. I call upon Lynn Tran. Hi, Lynn.
Hello. My name is Lynn Tran. I live in Port Melbourne since moving here in 2020. I have a background as a disability support worker and have been involved with the Eco Centre since I moved to the area. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this council budget meeting. I believe it is imperative that the Eco Centre continues to be supported by local community and council so that it may continue the important work it provides, including research, education and ongoing environmental projects in partnership with hundreds of schools and organisations. The Eco Centre provides a place for members of the community to be involved and be of service to community environment projects for cleaner, greener neighbourhoods that will be difficult to complete, if not for the ongoing effort and commitments of local volunteers. Council funding for Eco Centre staff helps ensure volunteer activities are inclusive, organised, safe, compliant, empowering and enjoyable. In the last 2 years, I have not been able to continue full or even part-time paid employment due to my ongoing chronic health issues. Being involved with the Eco Centre's weekly gardening group has given me a sense of purpose and belonging that I would have found difficult to cultivate on my own. Being involved with the gardening group means I have the opportunity to meet other members of the community, form connections, build relationships, contributing to my sense of well-being and balanced mental health. Having lived here for only 3 years, isolation and loneliness can permeate my life. However, this has now eased with my involvement with the Eco Centre. I also see the benefits it brings to others in my Friday group alone and the joy they experience with cultivating a garden and taking ownership for their efforts. And I'm grateful that for now we have some funding to continue the group. I've also immensely enjoyed the outreach work that our group has been involved with to help others, notably in the Garden of the Salvation Army Youth Service and at the Indigenous Nagi Tree site in St Kilda. Thank you for your time and please keep funding the Eco Centre operations so that the important work they do for the community continues.
Thank you for sharing, Lynn.
Thank you.
I call upon Jan Costner, speaking to the council plan and budget as well. Hi, Jan.
Hello.
I might just make a little note that I know Councillor Bond is having technical difficulties, but we'll be joining the meeting again shortly. Thank you. Go ahead.
I won't take 3 minutes. I couldn't get down to 2 last time I spoke, so this is less than 2. Jan Cosser, Middle Park resident. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the President of the Port Phillip Eco Centre, and after the presentations, I can't tell you how proud I am in that role. We have a wonderful community at the Eco Centre, and that was gave you a flavour of the work we do and the reach we have. Firstly, thank you to the Council for your support to the Eco Centre and the allocation in this year's draft budget. To the continued core service level funding, including cost adjustments for actual costs that you have provided, and for an 18-month trial Saturday, Sunday to cover staffing costs. We really appreciate that as we go forward. As you are aware, every dollar from Council is leveraged by the Eco Centre, as April said, to raise 70% of our total income from a range of other services. In fact, your own independent consultants assessed that the Eco Centre, as again April said, provided approximately 15.9% economic benefit ratio, which is a great return on investment by any standards. In your recent publications of the revised Act and Adapt strategy and the Emergency Action Plan, you quote in there that the City of Port Phillip is proud of our long-term funding partnership with the Eco Centre to promote environmental sustainability and community action. Thank you for saying that. You also reference throughout those documents the Eco Centre on numerous occasions in terms of the activities that will be undertaken on the Council's behalf. Given the success of this partnership and that we are a proven investment and have capacity to scale up in the new premises, I want to be a bit bold here. So, and to say, and I respectfully request, that if there is additional resources in the budget, that you see your way clear to thinking about allocating additional money to the Eco Centre. We're exceptionally good at what we do. We have enormous community support, and we're about to move into a great new premise.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you very much.
I call upon James Sells joining us online. James, can you hear us? Is he unmuted?
This is James.
Oh, there
you
you go. Yep, we can hear you. So if you can say name, suburb, and you'll have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. This is James from South Melbourne. I'm the chair of the Multicultural Advisory Committee, and so what I'm about to say is spoken on behalf of the Multicultural Advisory Committee at the City of Port Phillip. Most of our suggestions have been put on the submission, so I will just highlight the important ones that we would like the council to know. First is about housing. So we would like the needs, the challenges, and the concerns of multicultural and migrant communities to be considered when developing the council's housing strategies. And we recommend that the council officers collaborate or consult with the committee as well as Port Phillip's multicultural communities when developing effective and timely communications related to the strategy. We also ask that adequate funding, resources and land be allocated to social and affordable housing. Next point would be the health and well-being. The committee recommends that the intersectional and the holistic approach and understanding to be adopted when conceptualizing and implementing health and well-being programs. And so the cultural needs and the multiple identities of multicultural individuals need to be considered. We also recommend that the lived and living experiences of multicultural communities be leveraged in the form of advisory and consultation panels when developing such a program. We also suggest that the council support service providers and the staff with necessary resources and education opportunities when delivering such programs. Next point is about diversity and inclusion. And so the committee wants to provide consultation and valuable input to the Council's diversity and inclusion framework because we believe this will lay a solid foundation for future accreditation of the Council to the Welcoming City Standards, which is Australia's highest national standards in local government practice. Next point would be on intercultural understanding and anti-racism. We would like to ask the Council to really promote active interactions and engagement between multicultural and the broader communities so that it's not just about celebrating diversity, but also deepening intercultural understanding because we believe that this would improve cultural awareness and reduce cultural bias and misunderstanding. It also breaks down cultural stereotypes and myths and counters racism, which is quite prevalent in certain segments of the community. This could be implemented by the way of community grants assessment. So, for example, applicants could be asked to incorporate engaging multicultural communities in the selection criteria. So this could be actively engaging multicultural audiences and clients or using multicultural service providers and contractors. Next part would be next point would be related to employment support for migrants. So we ask that education sessions be held by the council, and this could incorporate networking and interactions with job seekers as well as potential employers, so that migrants from multicultural backgrounds can receive support in the form of countering unconscious bias, racism, and racist assumptions during the recruitment process.
Thank you, James. I'm going to have to stop you there because it's been over 3 minutes, but thank you very much for calling in tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Bond is back on, but they haven't enabled his camera. Is that on your end? Good. Welcome back, Councillor Bond. Okay, let's keep going. I call upon Hilary Bush speaking tonight. Hello, Hilary.
Hello.
Name, suburb, you have 3 minutes, please.
Hilary Bush. I'm from outside the municipality, but I'm here in my capacity as the president of the South Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. Thank you very much for your time tonight. The SMSO is one of Victoria's longest running community orchestras, having been established by City of Port Phillip councillors in 1946, which means we're celebrating our 80th anniversary in 2026. We play 4 public concerts a year, performing a range of works from classical symphonies to new pieces composed by local musicians. Up until 2020, we had rehearsed, bless you, and performed in the South Melbourne Town Hall for 75 years, a space with superb acoustic qualities, a dedicated library for our music and instruments, and a large number of seats for audience members. Unfortunately, we have been displaced from the South Melbourne Town Hall since 2020 due to building works. In this time, we have been forced out of the municipality due to unavailability of COPP venues and a lack of financial or in-kind support from the council. The SMSO is now entering its 5th year of self-funding, which is having severe financial consequences given our venue costs. Our future in South Melbourne is also uncertain, given the changes to the use of the hall under the new ANAM lease. We appreciate that the SMSO has been considered in this agreement, but we are dependent on Council to ensure we are able to return to the South Melbourne Town Hall under the previous arrangements. The draft Year 4 budget and plans states that construction cost increases have impacted the budget and timeline for delivery of the Town Hall works. Forecasted expenses for the works extend into 25-26, suggesting that works will continue for at least another 12 to 18 months. And this is before ANAM conduct their works prior to taking on the lease of the Town Hall. The SMSO's operations and requests for support is directly aligned with a number of your strategic priorities and plans. I come here tonight representing our 60-person orchestra with the request to include support for the SMSO in the budget in the form of a modest ongoing grant to assist with operating costs and/or the provision of a suitable concert venue for our large symphony orchestra so that we may return home. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
where are you at the moment, and why are you not using Port Melbourne Town Hall?
We have previously used Port Melbourne Town Hall, and access, acoustics and storage was an issue. We did conduct a good evaluation of all of the City of Port Phillip venues, and none were suitable either from an acoustic perspective or a storage perspective or a financial perspective. We are in Richmond at the moment in a church, which is, as you'll appreciate, has good acoustic qualities, but has been we've been forced into that venue because of in-kind support from an orchestra member. So we've been able to access a discounted rate there, which is the only way we've been able to have a venue for the purposes that we need for as long as we need throughout the year.
And your relationship with the City of Port Phillip. I've been here almost 8 years and I've never seen your wonderful orchestra at one of our citizenship ceremonies or any of our civic events.
Yeah.
Why is that?
We haven't traditionally had a kind of a play for service or a play for fee operation. It has been, for the last 75 plus years, a kind of a 4 concert per year thing. It is something that we did discuss with one of the council workers when we started kind of more formal negotiations a few years ago. But it's, I think, given the makeup of the orchestra, the type of people that join the orchestra and the historical way that things have been done, it hasn't been something that we've explored, especially not for a fee, but there wasn't a an appetite to take up additional kind of rehearsals and performances on top of our schedule. It's most Monday nights plus 4 concerts a year, which you can appreciate is a good amount of time for people to...
And one last question, where are the 4 concerts being done now?
In Richmond.
Have you inquired about using the town hall?
We haven't.
This town hall?
Yes, we have, but fees were an issue. Because we operate such a small operating budget and profit, we weren't able to access the hall on an ongoing basis, again, for the amount of rehearsals and performances we needed. We have looked into the subsidy for the hall. I understand that's a one-off grant, though, and that wouldn't necessarily set us up well on an ongoing basis. So we were considering applying for that come our 80th year if we couldn't access a suitable venue in time, but you'll also appreciate that building up an audience at any venue is important. So it hasn't been our strategy to kind of shop around different venues as they become available or accessible.
Thank you for the information. Thank you for your service to our community. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of proposals as well with a bit of further information if you need it. Thank you.
Sure, you can leave it with the governance team if you'd like. Over here. Sorry, over there.
Oh,
thank you, Hilary. I call upon Graham Halperin joining us online. Sorry, are we ready online? Double. Yeah, great. Hi, Graham. Name, suburb. We have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to address you. I'm an owner of a shop in Carlisle Street, Balaclava, which of course has been going through some pretty difficult times for the last few years, particularly since the onset of COVID.
Graham, can I pause you real quick? For the record, can you say your name and suburb, and then you can keep going?
Yes, sorry,
Thanks.
my apologies. Graham Halperin, Balaclava.
Great.
Thank you. The focus of what I want to address is the draft rating strategy, and in particular the intention of imposing a penalty, what is essentially a penalty, or a draconian measure, which is a 400% or 300% increase in rates, depending upon whether something is unactivated retail land or vacant land, for example. My focus is on what the so-called unactivated retail land, which is on page 111 of volume 2 of the council plan and budget. What it would mean, and this is where my principal concern lies, is if you cannot let your shop for, say, a period of 2 years, then you are going to be hit with a 400% increase in rates. Now, I regard that as patently and manifestly draconian and punitive, and it is essentially punishing landlords who are unable to let shops in the area. I'm not a land banker. I've owned the shop for over 20 years. So it's been let out, and it was let out right up to and including the beginning of COVID. But the fact of the matter is that COVID damaged the street. We know that the street has changed. It has no banks anymore. It has lost grocers, it's lost butchers, etc. And there are very huge difficulties that potential tenants face in terms of interest rates, in terms of the cost of living deterring consumers, etc. I've prepared a very detailed summary of my submissions, and I would like to urge the councillors to read it. It was sent to the council on the 22nd of April 2024. It made at various different points. I think the street desperately needs help, and this is certainly going to be the opposite of providing an incentive. It's in fact going to punish the landowners. Some shops need to be improved. In fact, I'm doing improvement works to the shop at the moment, and imposing a 400% rent increase is hardly an incentive to continue investing in the area or even to remain in the area. So I think I'd like the council to consider other means of trying to improve the street, and that is, for example, allowing further development in the area. I'm not a developer. I've never been a developer. I'm only a landlord. But the fact of the matter is that the street needs to be revitalised, as occurred in Glenhuntly Road, Elstonwick, which has seen a huge spike in shops being let there, and also in Hampton Street, Hampton. And I would urge councillors to have a look at paragraph 4 of my email of the 22nd of April 2024, which addresses that particular point. But massive rate hikes, particularly after a marketing levy was recently imposed in the street, it just can't be borne at the moment. We can't make it more expensive and more difficult to try and let out shops in the area. So that's essentially my submission, and I think anybody on any fair analysis would say that a 300 or 400% rate increase is just purely draconian and purely punitive.
Thank you,
Graham.
Graham.
Very much, councillors.
Can you resend your email? Because I just looked at my emails and I don't have anything coming up in your name. Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. But if you could go ahead and resend that to at least me, the mayor, that'd be really helpful, please.
Yes, I sent it to, was sent to Help Desk, Council Plan and Budget. Kim
Okay, all right.
Isaac
Then it has been received.
With me. Yes.
Sorry, the formal, I thought you said councillors. All right, then it has been received and that's been confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Back in the room, I call upon Gillian Redner. Hello, Gillian.
As you have just heard, my name is Gillian Redner. I live in North Caulfield, but I'm here in my capacity as an owner of a shop in Ackland Street, St Kilda.
Great.
And I wish to speak to the council's letter advising me that, like the previous speaker, I may be liable to up to a 400% rise in the rates I currently pay on that shop, because I have had difficulty in finding a tenant for the last 2 years. Now, I put in a detailed submission to council with a summary of the expenses I've incurred in this last 2 financial years, just to keep the shop on the market and keep it presentable and pay all the associated legal costs, land tax costs and so on that accompany keeping the shop truly viable and open on the market and sufficiently attractive to potential tenants. Those costs, based on the accountant's BAS returns for the last 2 years, at the moment have amounted to $67,366.48. Now, if the council wishes to add extra costs to that, that would be something in the area of, if supposing it's 400%, I'm currently paying $7,000 per annum for rates, so that would bring the rates up to $28,000. That's going to add another $21,000 to what I'm already paying, which is over $67,000, just to keep the shop on the market. So it does look, as the previous speaker suggests, that this is a misguided concept, that you need another way to define unactivated retail land. I can understand that there may be people who have properties that they're not interested in leasing out, or that they don't wish to develop, properties that may have been allowed to run down. That is certainly not the case with my shop, which was fully renovated in 2019 with all new wiring infrastructure installed. It is actually presented now as a fully equipped potential restaurant. It has been a restaurant for anything up to 30 years and was in my husband's family all that time. So we have done everything we can, including reducing the asking rent by almost half since the period in 2019, just before COVID struck. We are receiving constant inquiries, so it's not as if we're asking too much or the shop's not attractive. Constant inquiries, but many of those are actually phony. And I wonder if council understands the situation of traders in a depressed shopping strip like Ackland Street. There are a number of traders who are locked into leases that they signed into, prior to coronavirus or at a time when rents were very high. They are using the fact that there are empty shops to exercise leverage on their own landlords to drop the rent. So I have had, for example, 2 examples where a heads of agreement letter was signed by a prospective tenant, and I have gone to my lawyer and instructed him to prepare a lease, only for the tenant to walk away and not sign the lease, thus leaving me with something like a $3,000 legal fee. Now, why do they do this? I do think the council needs to think about this. They do it, as I've mentioned, in order to present a landlord, at a time when they're thinking of taking out an option, with proof that they can get another property much cheaper than what they're paying in rent for their own shop. But they also do it for other reasons which may not be so obvious. One, a letter and proof that a lease has been offered and, you know, they have been accepted by a landlord in a reputable business area, gives them something to show banks if they wish to take out a loan.
Thank you, Gillian. That's good information.
I mean. So we are in a position where there are offers that aren't genuine, but which are costly.
Yep. Thank you very much. There's a question here from Councillor Clark.
Right.
Thank you for coming in. Why do you think then, given that you have dropped the rent significantly, you are unable to find a tenant?
Well, it's the situation in Ackland Street itself, which is fairly depressed. There are a great many empty shops. That has been the case since coronavirus. I did have a tenant who tried to run a restaurant there early in the pandemic, who came in February 21. He was on 6 months rent-free. He then was given a 50% rent reduction, you know, in order to support him during coronavirus. That tenant, apart from paying 1 month's rent to the agent, paid me 1 month's rent in 18 months. Okay, so there are people who see an opportunity to start a business. They find that they can somehow impress a landlord as to their potential to successfully run a business, and then simply are incompetent, simply do not know how to cope. And given that the street has had very varied clientele, there are periods when it's busy and there are periods when it's extremely quiet. So I don't wish to point fingers at people who try to run a business and fail. It's terrible for them too. But the costs that the landlords incur when a business fails are extremely high. Not only have we incurred all the normal overheads, I had, in this case, to ask my lawyer to evict the tenant because I couldn't go on sustaining someone who's only paid basically 2 months' rent in 18. It's a
Thank you,
situation.
Gillian. There's a few more questions. Councillor Sirikoff?
Yes, someone here.
Yeah, thank you for coming in tonight. Did you say that your shop is in Ackland Street?
Yes.
Are you aware of a project that's happening at the moment where council is providing funding to help retailers to get their shops going? It's a very new project.
Yes, I'm aware of it. I was contacted by council to give someone the right to use the shop for 2 months in the summer period that just passed, and that offer was to pay $2,500 per month, so that would be $5,000 altogether, with no outgoings. Now, to earn $5,000, I would have to have had a tenant in there who may or may not have been able to cope, may have had no business experience, but it would have been a deterrent for, you know, people who were genuinely seeking to establish a long-term business there. To succeed in running a shop at that rent and no outgoings for a short period is no test of a person's capacity to succeed in business. So I didn't feel that was a realistic proposal. In principle, it's a good idea, but the actual proposal itself has to be realistic. So I wasn't able to respond to that particular proposal.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Sirikoff? Okay, Councillor Crawford.
Mine was more for officers.
Okay, yes, officers.
So under our policy, though, with this vacant or unactivated, there is opportunity for landlords to show that they are genuinely trying 2 years to get tenants, and are they able to show, if they're able to show that is their consideration able to be given under our policy?
Peter Liu?
Sorry, is that a question for...
No, sorry, we're going to go to the officer there.
Through you, Mayor. I think we need to take that on notice because we need to assess a lot of criteria in order to understand the issue here. Yeah.
Can I clarify, they do have 2 years before any of this would be applied?
Yes, 2 years. So it's been vacant more than 2 years. That's my
Well, in my case, it's just over 2 years. And
Thank you, Gillian.
Sorry.
I just have one more question that's come from another councillor. If you're willing to tell us what property it is on Ackland
yes,
Street?
of course. It's 83 Ackland Street.
83.
It was for many years, what's the hamburger chain called? Grilled, a grilled shop.
Okay.
They
Thank
moved
you.
out in 2019, and then we have had this,
Excellent.
period of constant interruption.
Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Okay.
I'll move on to the next speaker.
So could I just finish by saying that...
Oh, sorry, no, I'm not able to give more time to be fair to everybody else getting the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. You're welcome to email, so.
I will do so then, thank you.
I call upon Tamara Jungworth. Hi, Tamara.
Hello. Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Tamara Jungworth. I'm the CEO of Gasworks Arts Park and I'm also a St Kilda resident. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We are the iconic hub of performing arts, visual arts and outdoor events in the west end of the city of Port Phillip. We're putting a bit of West End razzle-dazzle into the West End. Last year, 75,000 people attended our events and additional people attended the cafe and the park. So to make all of this happen, unfortunately, we do use a lot of electricity. And we have started the activation of the transition to renewable sources and efficiency by transitioning our electric lights to LED fixtures. As we run a whole range of public buildings, we do have a considerable lighting stock and we've achieved 20% of that transition, and that will be an ongoing process that we will be doing. But a new important project to transition our electricity usage to solar is something that we're working with the City of Port Phillip on at the moment, and we've achieved good support through your Sustainability Department and your Arts Department, and we thank you for that. And the stage we're at is that we are seeking approval from the City of Port Phillip to be able to do a solar installation on the roofs. We've done some research and we've identified the suitable roof surfaces for the installation of solar panels on our smaller theatre and on our cafe. And so we're seeking permission to move forward with that project and also some funding support of approximately $40,000 to be able to do the installation, which will then last for 25 years. So we see it as a great investment into the future and future residents and ratepayers of the City of Port Phillip. And so we're very excited about the project, and so we're in progress with it. We do seek your support to be able to transition our electricity usage in this way. Our sustainability policy and the City of Port Phillip's Act and Adapt policy are very well aligned, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much. I call upon Veena Mishra, speaking to 3.1 as well. Hi, Veena.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Veena Mishra from the Executive Officer of Port Phillip Community Group. We operate from St Kilda, St Kilda East and Port Melbourne. We have been around for over 50 years and we've been working with this council and the previous iterations of the council since 2010. I thank the council and the executives for your continued support of our organisation to the draft budget. I'd like to assure the council that the value that is provided to the community is at least 4 times more than the physical value contained in the draft budget papers today. A small, nimble organisation like PPCG can pivot quickly to respond to local community emergencies and need. We value our networks and the role that we play in providing social infrastructure in the City of Port Phillip. I acknowledge that the council has shown immense patience as we negotiate and advocate for state and federal funding for programs such as food security, neighbourhood housing, social meals, and community housing to support elderly residents. There was some light at the end of the tunnel in the current state budget, so there's some positive news, hopefully. Loneliness is the next biggest health issue. and in the city of Port Phillip, 41% of people reside in single households. Most are disconnected from communities, and we engage with these people within the cohort through schools, through families, in order to address disadvantage early. We provide engagement and connection to support housing placements so that people don't rotate through the housing system. We know that placements fail due to lack of local area knowledge. Pathways to employment, attendance at education opportunities, as well as financial capability skills, are sometimes all that a resident needs to avoid being on the streets. We are an early intervention and prevention service as much as a crisis support service, and we service across all demographics of Port Phillip. I request that the Council supports BPCG to deliver a more livable Port Phillip in its budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Helen Halliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Helen Halliday. I live in Balaclava, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I have already provided you with a significant amount of information, and I wanted to put this, first of all, in the context of the relativities of the amounts of rate income that is spent by area, which demonstrates yet again that Balaclava is right at the bottom end of all of the scales that, well, not right at the bottom, but near to the bottom. And if money was not an inducement to investment, then I wonder why there's other places like Port Melbourne and Elwood and South Melbourne have got, sorry, not South Melbourne, I think it's Middle Park. But anyway, why so much of the council investment is spent in those areas. So this year we did that analysis. Last year we did an analysis of open space. And to the council's credit, as a result of that analysis, we have actually achieved a significant lift in our open space, and fortunately and very wisely, the council has invested its open space budget in the areas which we believe there was the greatest need. So we appreciate that. I provided you with a chart which lists a whole range of issues which are of and projects that have come to our attention, and the ones in yellow are the ones that where we feel that the council is either going slow or maybe has a budget, has a business as usual opportunity which it may be investing in. And we certainly found that in relation to at least the Argyle Street group, that there was quite a lot of money being invested in other aspects of the budget. So once again, we thank you for that. However, in relation to the Green Line, we presented the Green Line to the Council in 2020, and we're still waiting for even one single step of the Green Line to be supported. It's not only an issue of linking three major regional parks, it's also the opportunity that it exists to link us to each of the major shopping centres in the area. And we believe that Balaclava would be advantaged, we believe that Ripponlea would be advantaged, and we certainly believe that the City of Glen Eira has recognised this and given us a very substantial amount of both time, effort and energy, and actually moving towards design phase for that part of the city. And for those people that are concerned about shopping centres, I think that densification is a really important issue, as is what we're trying to promote, which is an urban forest link.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you very much for your time, effort, energy.
There's a question here from
Just a quick question. You're referring to this graph
Yes.
here?
Yes.
Just don't get the vertical axes. So it's got don't really understand how this works. So Balaclava Ward, you've got at 60%, and Montague Ward, you've got at 160%. What is this illustrating?
That's illustrating the amount. That's an illustration of the comparative amounts per area that is spent in each of those areas. But
so Balaclava Ward at 60% versus Port Melbourne Ward at 120%. Just explain that to me.
In other words, for the amount that's raised in the dollar, those areas have the major share of the capital works programs.
So it gets 120% of the average Port Melbourne Ward. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well,
right,
in another way of putting it, for every dollar that's raised by the council, Balaclava gets about 60
cents in the dollar.
And areas such as Port Melbourne, Montague and...
So you're saying a ratepayer in Balaclava Ward's right? I got you. Understood.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
And Councillor Niagri has a question.
I just wanted to clarify. Obviously, there are a number of different funding sources. Some of them are rates, which would obviously be distributed equally across the municipality. A lot of the funding we receive in strategic...
the rates are distributed
evenly across the municipality, generally. Things like strategic reserves, though, that's usually through developer contributions at the time of construction of projects, particularly at the Fisherman's Bend end. Does this analysis take that into account? Because there'll obviously be times when we're spending significant amounts of our strategic reserves on particular projects, but that funding has specifically come from that particular geographic area where the park, for example, might be being funded and isn't being funded, in fact, by all ratepayers.
Recognising all of that, that shows Montague Ward as having a significant amount of current investment, which I'm sure you would understand why you're doing that. But similarly, Lakeside Ward, which is taking the burden of the population densification, has a very low rate in the dollar. We have suggested, for example, that services such as the St Kilda Library should be improved. We don't get any investment in that. The amount of money has really been 38 million, I think, that was spent on a recreation reserve project. So certainly this is a snapshot over the life of this council. So it's not just the last year, it's a series of years. So it does reflect where the investment is.
Thank you. Councillor Sirkoff.
And certainly I agree that Montague is disproportionately reflected because of its what is seen to be its growth potential, whether that's...
Well, I'm just clarifying, though, that it's disproportionately funded too. The source of the funding is coming from developed contributions in Montague. So residents in Montague are paying extra money to have that open space be funded. It's not being funded by, as far as I'm aware.
I think it's reserves possibly that have been spent over years. It is a difficult graph. I think you're showing quite a lot of information there. Councillor Sirkoff?
There's more graphs, so relax.
Yeah.
By a better person to talk about graphs.
Okay, Councillor Sirkoff?
I'm better talking about projects. Sorry, certainly.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the sheet that you've provided. I think it might be, I'd also like to see these graphs also done in a unitised way, that is per population, so we get a better idea of standardising, especially the first graph and the last graph. I think that'd be a little bit more informative.
Most of the graphs have been provided according to the new ward boundaries, so they've all been equalised on population.
Yes.
All right, I think we'll have to keep it with the question
it would be good
scenario
if you
here.
had it unitised per 1,000 people.
It's my son.
Looks like Justin can provide this. I think maybe Councillor Sirkoff has some questions about some more graphs that you might be able to supply. So why don't you guys contact each other later? All right, let's keep going.
I would like to see any graphs that are unitised per 1,000 population.
Can you guys take this off the microphone? Thank you. All right, Justin Halliday, why don't you come down and have a chat with us? Thank you, everyone.
For those, there are other copies of the drafts here. If anyone else wants to see some drafts, we have some spares.
This is a man who loves drafts.
Apologies.
So do I.
Don't hand them out now, actually. If we
Just back
could just
there.
keep going, Helen.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin, go ahead.
Justin Halliday, St Kilda East. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, council officers. Apologies for getting our ordering wrong there. It's budget time again, and we're going to hear the same complaints saying that St Kilda, Port Phillip's rates are too high, Port Phillip's staffing is too high, and demanding cuts to our rates. So I did the maths, as you can see from these graphs. And you can see from the graphs that the Port Phillip rate in the dollar is lower than average on here. You can see that our rates bills are lower than average. You can see that council staffing is lower than average. And if anyone says otherwise or tries to convince you of otherwise, they're cherry-picking data, and that's a cardinal sin in the data analysis world. I also reviewed the council budgets for the last 5 years and the forward estimates, which is what you're seeing here on the graphs, and found catastrophic inequity in council's discretionary spending against the 9 wards. For example, South Melbourne, Albert Park and St Kilda receive approximately $1 for each dollar that their ratepayers pay that goes into the discretionary pool. And those go for things like parks, community facilities, recreation, shopping strips, landscaping and urban renewal. Comparatively, Port Melbourne, Elwood and Montague receive almost twice as much spending, approximately $1.70 for each dollar that their residents put into that pot that is spent on these discretionary spending, this capital program that we have. And sadly, even the welcome investment in the public space expansion program, which we appreciate very much, even after that, the Balaclava and Elmer Ward received just over 60 cents for each dollar that they put in. The rest of the money subsidises quality of life improvements for residents in Port Melbourne, in Montague and in Elwood. And Lakeside Ward is even worse, as you can see from the graphs. So there's no money in this budget right now for safe pedestrian crossings on Elmer Road or Nightingale Street, but it does have $3 million in there for Kerford Road foreshore. There's no money in the budget to revitalise Argyle Street or Maryville Street, but there's $30 million in the budget at the moment for the Elwood foreshore over the forward estimates. There's no money for Port Phillip's worst park in Ripponlea. Nominated that in 2011. But there's $5 million for a synthetic pitch at J.L. Murphy Reserve. And there's no money for Alexandra Street in the budget, which is an urban heat sink and currently home to over 30 trailers, camper vans, caravans, rental vans, storage containers, trucks, mobile dog washers and dumped cars. But there's $6 million for Lagoon Reserve, and even that project's budget is estimated at higher than that, over $10 million. Right now, this budget continues the systemic underinvestment that we have in Balaclava and St Kilda East. These areas don't have facilities, so they don't get funding. This is what is happening in this city. And Council's budget process is broken, and it's time for a change.
Thank you, Justin.
Apologies for that. To your question, can I answer the question that came?
Would you like to ask the same question?
Sorry.
I'll bite. Yeah. The same question, which would be, have you removed developer contributions? And also, I mean, you mentioned Kerford Road foreshore, that's funded entirely by the state government, just to clarify.
Well, Council goes out of its way to fund things from state government that improve these same areas. They don't go out of the way for other areas. With the developer contributions, areas like Montague, where the recent acquisition of the $38 million post office thing, that's funded out of future developer contributions. They are in arrears by $46 million there. They are spending future dollars to add amenity and parks to an area that, even when it has its full projected population in the future, will have more public open space than we have in St Kilda right now, in St Kilda East.
Thank you very much. Going on to Catherine Bowen. Hello, Catherine.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Catherine Bowen, St Kilda West. I'm speaking as a community member, but also as a member of the Committee of Management at the Port Phillip Eco Centre. and also as a lead author on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I'd like to express gratitude to the Council for its wonderful support of the Eco Centre over many years. As a local member of the community, I see the benefits of such a centre that it has not just on adults but also on children. So I've got 2 children attending local public schools in the area. And we know that the role of the community is just vital in terms of tackling climate change in particular, especially in relation to our health and well-being. And the Eco Centre is a fantastic example of what the IPCC is saying that is vital in terms of responding to the climate emergency. So it's a privilege of mine to be working with such a fantastic organisation on the Committee of Management. And I've chosen to work with this community organisation because of the great work that it does. So as an author of the IPCC, I can see many international examples of grassroots organisations trying to make a difference. And I've chosen to work with the Eco Centre because it is a globally leading gold standard organisation. It's an absolute standout exemplar of education, research and community-based activities, and I applaud its incredible work, and I feel very fortunate to be able to be on the Committee of Management, as I said. So it's wonderful that the Council does partner with the Eco Centre because you're clearly recognising the important work that it does, and they are really pioneering the way internationally in terms of local actions. And my call, I suppose, for request from the Council is to consider additional funding for activities that will really allow the Eco Centre, particularly in its new space, opening shortly, to utilise that full potential. So it's a wonderful new space that we will be enjoying shortly, but really there's a clear need there to support further additional activities to see it really come to life. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call upon Mick Meehan. Hello, Mick.
Evening all, and all due respect. I believe I've met this councillor over here before.
Great. If you could say your name and suburb, you'll have 5 minutes.
My name's Michael Meehan and I come from Paran. I've been volunteering at the Eco Centre Friday Garden Group for about 8 years now, and it seems to me that the Garden Group has evolved into a weekly gathering of friends interested in gardening, friends who are for and nurture each other as much as we do the garden, which is doing blooming well, by the way. We share a healthy meal each week, made mostly from our own produce. This goodwill is extended to anyone who happens to be at the Eco Centre at the time. Well, sorry, I'm hot. I want to talk about the further connections the group has made in the wider community. Firstly, just up the road here in Bothwell Street, Balaclava, we were and are involved in a planting of a wide nature strip with Indigenous plants, with the council, the community and university involvement. We have also done biodiversities up there, surveys and the ongoing upkeep of the nature strip. We also maintain the gardens at our Salvation Army refuge for growing young mothers up on Dandenong Road and have been doing so for a few years. We have the privilege of helping to care for and establish the gardens around the corroboree tree at St Kilda Junction. To me personally, I feel honoured to have this connection with our First Nations people. I and others have become involved with earth care at St Kilda through our connection with the Eco Centre. All of these things are through our connection with the Eco Centre. And on Sunday, we in fact planted 2,500 bushes and shrubs and grasses along Canterbury Road at the Fraser Street Light Rail stop with earth care. And I also met the lady that started earth care, which was quite an honour. We're also involved in the Yellowcoot Willem Nature Reserve, which used to be the old Astlink Golf Course. Our group goes up to help with whatever needs doing at the time. Now, I don't know if any of you have been up there lately, but it is a great place and well worth a visit. They've seen birds there they haven't seen for 50 years. They've got a string of ponds and billabong and all sorts of things. Heaps of people are putting efforts into it. I'm sure you know about it. It's a fantastic place. It's attracting bird life, yeah. It's here as well as at the crabbery tree, which I talked about earlier. I get the feeling of Wominjanka, which is welcome and come with purpose, which we do, all the people we go out and meet in the community, our group. The Friday Garden Group at the Eco Centre has far-reaching non-tangible benefits for its participants and the greater community. The physical, social and psychological benefits can't be given a monetary value, but far outweigh, I believe, the dollar amount it takes to keep the group going.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you very much for sharing with us. I'll call upon Rhonda Small. Hello, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I speak tonight to Progressive Port Phillip's submission.
Real quick, name, suburb.
Oh, sorry.
I know. You should know this by now.
How do I forget? Rhonda Small, St Kilda.
Thank you.
So I speak tonight to Progressive Port Phillip's submission on the budget and focus on aspects of the cost of living and climate crises and some missed opportunities for action in the draft budget to address both. First, families with young children. The draft budget proposes an increase of $10 a day in fees for families attending council-run early education and care centres. We oppose such a steep rise, equal to 6.8% and well above CPI, in the midst of a cost of living crisis when many young families are struggling and families on low incomes are more likely to attend council centres. Second, the plight of renters. 49% of our community rent their homes. We all know of the desperate shortage of rental accommodation and of steeply rising rents. Yet this draft budget is silent on help for renters. While supporting extension of the economic recovery package, we propose that $250,000 of the proposed $650,000 to that be redirected to strengthen the work of community agencies such as Launch Housing or Southside Justice in meeting increased demand from residents struggling due to the rental crisis. We urge Council to reconsider the motions supported recently by 4 of 9 councillors to do just this. Third, the need for more social and affordable housing. We also know that much more social and affordable housing is needed. Yet, for the first time in many years, this draft budget contains no future provisioning for capital investment in social housing. We believe that a commitment in the order of $1 million annually should be invested to leverage state and federal funding for more social housing in partnership with local housing providers. Fourth, mobilising our community to address climate change. Soon, as we've heard from many speakers tonight, we'll have a wonderful new building for the Port Phillip Eco Centre, and it's pleasing that some extra funding is proposed. But it is a missed opportunity if Council does not provide additional program funding to run new community climate workshops to support its own climate emergency action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Brian Pridmore. Has Brian checked in? Maybe not. Okay. I don't think we've seen Brian Pridmore. Okay. John Spearings, your turn. Hello, John.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is John Spearings. I'm living in Elwood. I want to speak to the Progressive Port Phillip budget submission, which was lodged yesterday, and particularly address the question of the proposed rate rise of 2.75%. The first point to note is that if the increase is adopted, residential rates and the waste charge will make up about 47% of council's income next year. Fines, user charges, other rates and other sources of income will do a lot of the heavy lifting to provide the services, open spaces and infrastructure we all need and all benefit from. The second point is that since the rate capping was introduced by the state government in 2016, the Municipal Association of Victoria calculates that local governments across the state have gone backwards in terms of rate income by 30% compared to CPI. Over time, the effect is to shift the cost of providing services and infrastructure from property owners to those paying fees, fines and other charges. The third point is that rates in Port Phillip are actually broadly in line with other metropolitan councils around Melbourne, and you'll see that in the chart that has been provided by Justin. Looking at relative rates in the dollar is perhaps the fairest way of comparing councils, because this takes into account the total residential property value of a municipality and each council's assessments of its community needs. Despite intense debate about rates in Port Phillip, the reality is that residential rates are close to the median across Melbourne. All of this is to say that calls for a rates freeze are not based on sound evidence. Those arguing for a rates freeze need to spell out what services they would cut or what other fees and charges they would increase. Finally, we strongly support Council's measures for rates assistance over and above that provided by the state government. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call upon Jack Halliday. Hello, Jack.
Evening, Mayor. Jack Halliday from Balaclava. Madam Mayor, CEO and councillors, I'm speaking about the urban forest strategy in the context of the budget. Port Phillip currently has about 46,000 trees in streets and gardens, giving canopy cover of 17%. To reach urban forest categorisation, canopy cover must reach 30%, which will involve nearly doubling the current level of cover. In a very crude extrapolation, and assuming tree species and distribution are maintained, we would need to plant around another 35,000 trees. In the discussions that have gone on about the strategy, the aspiration has been about reaching 30% canopy cover by 2040. But given that most species take between 10 to 15 years to reach canopy maturity, plantings would need to be front-loaded. Tree species and planting locations would need to be carefully selected, and planting all of the required tree numbers would need to be substantially completed by 2030. That is a huge task. In the best recent period of plantings, the 4 years leading up to and including 2019-20, Council averaged 1,350 trees being planted each year. In the 3 years since 21-22, including that year, new plantings have averaged 450 trees each year, just a third of the numbers previously planted. In 21-22, Council provided $740,000 for greening Port Phillip and 322 trees were planted, a very low number. The draft budget provides an average of just $720,000 annually over the next 4 years, less than we saw in 21-22. The Council will need to fund the strategy much more substantially if it wants to make the urban forest a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And the last person I have on my list is William McBride. Is there anybody else beyond William who has registered to speak who has not been called on yet? No? All right. Lucky last, William. Name, suburb, and 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name is William McBride. I'm here from South Melbourne. I'm the executive producer of dance and performing arts company Ballet Lab and the venue Temperance Hall. In 2024, our organisation lost significant funding from state and federal governments and is facing an uncertain future. We have submitted a request to Council for emergency special funding of $25,000 a year for 2 years, and I'd like to speak briefly to the community impact of Council's draft budget and to reiterate that our request for emergency support to prevent our closure. Temperance Hall is a unique space for culture building, community gathering and artistic inquiry in the heart of South Melbourne, 2 blocks down from Emerald Hill and the South Melbourne Town Hall. The heritage building was built in 1863 by the Emerald Hill Total Abstinence Society, and since 2016 it has been tenanted and operated by dance and performance company Ballet Lab. Over 8 years, we have established a vibrant community of practice by programming and supporting hundreds of independent artists with a key focus on contemporary and experimental dance practices and LGBTQI+ artistic expression. We have also established a robust operational model for the building as a unique and affordable venue for hire. Hirers include dance and theatre rehearsals and productions, yoga classes, self-defence workshops, fashion photo shoots, Netflix television dramas, functions and parties, classical music and choral recitals, art exhibitions, and end-of-year Christmas parties for our neighbours at Casper Care. Regular users of our space include key City of Port Phillip arts organisations, Raucous, Theatre Works, ANAM, the Australian Tapestry Workshop, Red Stitch, Weave Movement Theatre, City of Voices, JMC Academy, Arts Access Victoria, Thrive Festival, Murray White Room, and the Rupert Bunny Foundation Visual Arts Fellowship. And we've brought a plethora of major festivals to the City of Port Phillip, including Dance Massive, Midsummer, NGV Triennial, Melbourne Fringe, Melbourne Festival, Melbourne International Film Festival, the Festival of Surrealisms, Open House Melbourne, Festival of Live Art, Melbourne Fashion Week, Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, and Melbourne Art Fair. Our capacity to provide in-demand studio rehearsal space, performance presentation venues and visual art exhibition spaces to a wide range of community members means we support the viability of the broader cultural and community ecology of the City of Port Phillip. The amount that we are requesting is either large or small depending on what it is measured against, but it will make a huge impact on the viability of our operational model after the loss of state and federal funding. The events that take place at Temperance Hall are generally not-for-profit and community or artistic focused. No one makes much money from these sorts of activities, and indeed they are generally either wholly or heavily subsidised by the artists and the community members who undertake them. But they are activities that provide their own form of sustenance and carry their own potent intrinsic values, providing a social connective tissue that can hold communities together by bringing people together, by providing expressive outlets for complicated contemporary lives, by nurturing the original inquiries of local contemporary artists, and by providing the grit, comfort or exhilaration of live and in-person encounter as an alternative to the screens and routines of daily life.
Thank you. I can see you're coming to the end. Thank you very much. Question here from Councillor Clark.
Hi. Could you tell me how long you've had federal and state government funding and why did you lose it?
Yes, so the organisation Ballet Lab, which preceded its occupancy at Temperance Hall, was funded by multi-year funding from the federal government's by Australia Council, now Creative Australia, and it lost that funding along with a large proportion of those during the George Brandis cuts in 2016. We received significant funding from the federal government through RISE, the COVID funding, and that's the funding that has just expired. We do receive, in an unreliable way, project-based funding from the federal government's on a year-by-year or project-by-project basis, but that's not funding operational activities. And then as for state funding, it's competitive multi-year funding that was lost in 2021 at a weak point for the organisation during the pandemic after 2 years of closure, disrupting the live performance, the sort of fundamentals of the organisation. We were on something called strategic initiative funding, which is a reduction in funding to kind of see you out to who knows where. And in the last 3 months, we actually we had a request in with the state government for funding, and it was being considered and deliberated, but the feedback was that the constricted fiscal position of the state government just left no room for that. So we had our hopes up after 3 months of deliberation, but it came to not a good outcome.
Thank you, William.
Okay.
Councillor Sirkop has a question.
Thank you. I'm really impressed by the lineup of artists and different shows that you've had over time. What I'm curious about is that why isn't there any kind of continuing contributions from all these groups that have been using Temperance Hall to help you continue paying for all of your costs and needs to continue running it?
Yeah, so we do have a venue hire operational model, so they do pay, or depending on the arrangement, whether it's an internal programming or an external hire that is supported as a hirer, they do pay higher fees. But in a really rough estimate, the money that we can make in hiring alone pays rent, rates, cleaning, toilet paper, etc., basic overheads, and a staff member for maybe 1 day a week. And so the business model, it's not a commercial business model of a sort of for-profit hire arrangement. All of those organisations are probably in their own position of sort of financial stress and that kind of thing. So there's not, apart from the occasional exception like a Netflix special or something like that, it's subsidised use of the space.
Thank you. Right. That is the end of the list of speakers tonight. So we actually are voting on the officers' recommendations. But first, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers in relation to the report? A little bit different than we normally do it. All right. So if not, the recommendations that council thanks the community who have provided their feedback on at the 14th May 2024 special meeting of council as part of the draft 2024-25 council plan and budget, and notes the interim engagement summary report as included in attachment 1. Okay, no questions. I'm looking for someone to remove this. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And who would like to second it? I'll second it. Councillor Consolo. All right. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Martin? I'll just add thank you to everybody who came tonight, online, and throughout the whole process. We've heard from at least over 200 people listed in the report here, and there'll be far more than that across the last couple of days as well. It's not included in the report yet. That will come to the final report. So thank you for the community engagement. There are items we will consider. It's earlier this year that we hear from the community so that we can go back to some more workshops and before we go for the final budget in the end of June. So we're going to take that. Pardon, Councillor Martin? You want to vote? Okay, yes, all right. Thank you. We'll take that to the vote. Guys online, I can see you here. All right, all those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, so again, thank you for coming in tonight and sharing your feedback with us. We will take the opportunity to remind you that your feedback will be considered by Council and captured within the final engagement report. That report will be provided with the Council, the final Council Plan and Budget report. Sorry, this is on the 26th of June, 2024. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.